moments that were real as it gets. I was never asking for perfection. A skill word, real direction. It's just the feeling, it's your protection. Just to know it was my heart. Your hand in question. Left on red in the dark. You disappeared like you never had a heart. One day you were here. There you go. Just loving me was deeper than you wanted to go on. Real quick. Okay, y'all. Peace, y'all. It's me, Empress, and I am here with another episode of Divine Intervention Podcast. With that being said, welcome to Season 2, Episode 3. And it is Friday. Happy Venus Day, period. So let's get into this conversation on this topic. Now, the topic of this podcast is called Projection, Misattribution, and Relational Collapses, right? So we're still in the area of why humans destroy relationships without necessarily knowing that they're doing so, okay? So I just wanted to say, peace out, it's me, Empress Nicole, of Divine Intervention Show, readingnicole.com, Sankofa's Naturals, Ethereal Wellness, okay? Period. You can check me out on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere in the world. I am streaming there under the name Empress Nicole or Divine Intervention Show for the podcast. With that being said, subscribe to my YouTube, subscribe to our product, Spotify, subscribe to our Apple. We're on everything. And we're on Amazon as well and Pandora. Everything. Now let's get into this, okay? When it comes to projection, projection is something that I speak on a lot, especially when I'm doing my daily coaching videos. I speak on projection a lot because projection is so real. And I don't want people to feel like, oh, that's just a topic that people overspeak on and they under clarify. So with that being said, let's get into the clarification of exactly what projection is. Because projection is the unconscious displacement of internal states, sensations, fears, or unmet needs onto another human. Now, let's get into what misattribution means so no one's confused during this conversation. Misattribution is the incorrect assignment of cause for one's internal experience to someone else's character, intent, or morality. Okay? Now, when it comes to these two things, combined, projection and misattribution form one of the most destructive mechanisms in human relationships because they convert internal dysregulation into external blame. Okay? 1 second. Excuse me, I apologize for that. Once the conversions happen, the relationship becomes a site of a threat rather than regulation, balance, and harmony, and collapse becomes increasingly likely. Okay? Now, a relational collapse rarely begins with cruelty, it begins with confusion. One human feels something uncomfortable in their body. Instead of recognizing it as an eternal signal, they assign it meaning about the other person, right? The nervous system seeks relief by locating a cause. The mind supplies a story, okay? Period. This is not a moral failure, it is a regulatory shortcut. Now, I want you to understand this. And if you go through any of the things that I produced or put out there, you will find that I speak on how the body tells us that something's wrong all the time, especially during our community sessions when we are having sound bowl healing and meditation. I bring it up often about how the body signals pain and different things like that as a sign of release or a signal for you to pay attention to that area, or it's time for a change in something that's going on with your body. So how the nervous system turns sensations into accusations. From a psychological perspective, projection occurs when a nervous system is activated outside um, its window of tolerance. One more time. Projection occurs when a nervous system is activated outside its window of tolerance and cannot metabolize the sensation internally. The body experiences discomforts first, tension, anxiety, shame, anger, grief, fear. The mind then searches for an explanation that will reduce uncertainty and restore a sense of control. At this point, misattribution becomes regulating. Blaming another human gives the nervous system a target. It organizes chaos. It reduces ambiguity, okay? It creates a narrative where discomfort has a clear source and a solution. Hello? This is why projection is so compelling. It works in the short term. The problem is that projection bypasses self regulation and replaces it with relational aggression or withdrawal instead of asking, what is happening inside of me? The system asks, what is wrong with you? Over time, this conditions the nervous system to associate the other human with a threat, even when no objective harm is occurring. Point blank, period. You know, the more you convince yourself that it's somebody else's fault or that it's them causing you pain and grief and strife and stuff like that, definitely you will train your body. That's a good word to use. Train your body into believing that you're under threat. You know, the more the more dysregulated the nervous system is, the more certain it feels about its own interpretations. Certainty is calming. Ambiguity is threatening. This is why highly dysregulated humans often often sound morally confident, absolute, and convinced of their correctness. Once misattribution takes hold, feedback loops form. The accused human will react defensively or withdraws. This reaction is then used as evidence that the original projection was correct. The nervous system experiences confirmation and the relational rupture deepens. So basically, say for instance, if you were in a disagreement with someone over something and to shut down and not respond to you, not give it any more thought, not give it any more conversation. And you were saying in your head, you know what? This is confirming that I knew you had someone else, or I knew you was doing something on the side, or I knew you were cheating on me because you're not even trying to save this relationship. You're not even trying to talk to me. You're a coward. You're a nut. I don't want nothing to do with you. You're immature. This is what I'm speaking on. Okay. the rupture deepens because you feel like you have evidence once someone shuts down. Okay, your nervous system tells you, aha, you right? So projection feels like insight because certainty claims the nervous system, right? Ambiguity is when someone is not speaking or communicating during a rupture. So you feel like, well, I know why they're not doing that, because this is the kind of person they are. This is who they are. This is what they do. They don't know anything else but to be this, right? So that's you and your ambiguity, right? And it's very confident because you feel like you have evidence because they are not responding. They're not reacting the way that you feel maybe they need to react. Okay. So projection, when it comes to spirituality, projection can be looked at it as a fragmented self-contact because excuse me, I keep saying because spirituality, excuse me, because projection represents a loss of contact with the self. Parts of one's internal experience become disowned because they are overwhelming, socially unacceptable, or incompatible with identity. Okay? These disowned parts are the perceived extreme extreme externally to other humans, right? So people will see like, oh, you're just being extreme, you're being an extremist, you're overreacting, you're being dramatic, and they're not looking at it from your point of view. They're not looking at it from the full situation, because this is why projection is often accompanied by moralization. The projected content is framed as a flaw, a threat, or a failure in the other person rather than unresolved aspects of yourself. So, spiritually, this creates fragmentation rather than integration, because most people are projecting, they're projecting about themselves. Like, if they're saying, oh, she's ugly, they know that there is a part of them that's ugly, a part of them that's not attractive. And for some reason, they feel like they had to speak on somebody else because it makes them feel better. For some reason, they feel like they're better because they may feel like they have more expensive clothes, they have more opportunities, they have more sexual partners, they have a husband, a wife, whatever they feel like they have over someone else. They're going to project onto them how they really feel about themselves, because they really, truly, and deeply hate themselves inside. They truly and deeply are not satisfied with themselves inside. They truly and deeply, no matter how much they have in life, they will never feel satisfied. This is why they project out onto other people what they're not, what they what they should be doing, what they would, should, and could be doing, and they themselves are not doing any of those things. Yet somehow they feel highly convicted, excuse me, highly confident that they can speak on someone else's existence, right? So, in relational terms, projection contaminates the energetic field between humans. Instead of meeting the other as they are, one meets a symbol of something unresolved internally. True contact becomes impossible. Okay? True contact becomes impossible. How does true contact become impossible, Empress? Because if you're just looking at a projection of someone else, if you're just looking at a projection of someone else, and the interaction is no longer between two present beings, it's between one being and the eternal narrative that someone else has about them. It's literally like the internal narrative you have about yourself. You walk around putting that on other people because that's who you are. Like and people, an issue I've had with many of people is that I'm a very direct person. I'm not rude. I'm not blunt. I am not disrespectful, but I'm very direct. I'm very clear when I speak. I communicate very clearly, and I communicate with intentions. And I'm very mindful of the things I say. And the thing that really frustrates me is when people say I'm being passive aggressive because they themselves are not direct. They themselves do not use their voices. They themselves do not say the things they really want to say, and they hide behind little tiny attacks and stuff. Oh, you're being passive aggressive. No, I'm being very direct. You're being passive aggressive because you're not saying what you really want to say, right? You have to hide behind your words when I'm directly telling you how I feel, how you're making me feel, and what the situation is making me feel. And I'm also saying that I'm willing to fix this. I'm willing to be open to listen to you, as in to understand you and not to respond to you. So for me, when it comes to spirituality, too many people they take spiritual traditions that emphasize self-awareness and recognize projection as a barrier to truth. However, spiritual bypassing often turns insight into blame. Quote unquote, oh, you're just projecting. This weaponizes the concept and deepens the rupture rather than facilitating harmony or integration within the relationship. Too many people find comfort in dysregulation because they feel like, you know what, well, I'm gonna just say whatever I need to say. I'm gonna say it how I need to say it, right? And then they wonder why. Oh, but your impact have words. For me as a person who know my intentions are not bad, and I know that I'm not subliminally saying anything to anyone, and I'm just, I might be releasing spiritual downloads. I may be sharing something I learned or something that was just on my spirit. And my whole thing is this: if someone ever takes it personal and they don't come to me to discuss it, then that's their issue. That's their projection of me and what they thought was about them that had nothing to do with them. So my whole thing is, if you want something to be about you, then make it about you. But don't tell anyone that it came from me and it was directed to you, because I didn't put your name on it. I didn't insinuate that it was directed to you. I didn't tell you it was directed to you. You didn't ask me if it was directed to you. So this is why the rupture continues between people in spiritual relationships, because people project things out there and they stick to those projections in order to feed their ego, in order to feed the self-hatred that they have within themselves, the part of themselves that they cannot heal. They feed that monster, that demon within, right? The entities within, they constantly feed those demons with self-doubt, fear, and projections that they believe that other people think about them or feel about them, or that whatever they feel about themselves, that's crazy. So they project it out onto other people. Oh, well, you need to be this way. Oh, you shouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Well, I'm not you. I'm not you. And I don't live my life by your terms. I don't do the things you want me to do. I don't live the way you want me to live. And that's just not how it go. Period. Okay. So being straightforward and being a person of integrity matters. Point blank, period. It matters because authentic spiritual repair requires reclaiming projection without collapsing into shame. It requires recognizing that seeing something in another human does not automatically mean it originates there. It could have came from you. You might not like how direct someone is and think they have an attitude, but no, you have an attitude. You're on the defense, not them. It's you. They think they're better than me. No, absolutely not. You think they're better than you. You said it. You thought it. Those thoughts belong to you. Their projection belongs to you. Right? So we have to remember that the spiritual task is discernment, not denial. Okay. Projection is not seeing falsely, it is seeing internally and externally. Right? Projection is not seeing falsely, it is seeing internally and externally. Period. That's what it is. Point blank, period. That's just what it is. This was just what it's going to be. Right? Now, there's a couple different ways to look at this, through the absolutist lens. And that would be is why projection inevitably collapses relationships, because from that perspective, projection and misattribution are unsustainable because they misdiagnose the source of stress. When the wrong variable is targeted, corrective action fails. When the wrong variable is targeted, corrective actions fail. If a system treats internal overload as external threat, it will attempt to control, fix, or remove the wrong element. This increases instability rather than resolving it. Over time, trust erodes, communication breaks down, and separation occurs. This lens is unforgiving, but clarifying. A system cannot stabilize it if it does not correctly locate the source of dysfunction. Projection guarantees incorrect targeting. Therefore, collapse is not possibility. It is an event. It is, right? Because you had to remember, right? Absolutism removes moral judgment. Okay? That system fails not because people are bad, right? Not because people are bad, but because the feedback loop is faulty. Blame replaces diagnosis, reaction replaces regulation. Period. Okay? Blame replaces diagnosis, like the problem, okay? And the reaction replaces regulation. So most people just want a reaction. And I can admit to that. Like if I feel like I'm being clear with communication and nobody's not responding to me and they're not giving me anything, yeah, I want a reaction. Hell yeah, I want a reaction. It doesn't have to be a negative, it doesn't have to be low vibrational, but I want something. Right? And that's only because I want to communicate. That's my intention. My intention is never to make someone feel bad. My intention is not ever to guilt trip anyone, to try to make them agree with me, to try to give me exactly what I want. I mean, at the end of the day, who wouldn't want something out of a relationship? Why are you in a relationship if you don't have any wants or desires from the relationship, right? But my goal in a conversation or a miscommunication or a breakage in a rupture in a relationship is not to get what I want out of it. It's to make sure that we have mutual understanding on a mutual ground so it can be sustainable enough to last and that foundation doesn't begin to crack and break to a point where it's unfixable and it has to be demolished from the foundation up. And you got to pour a whole new foundation. Because that right there is going to take way more work than being patient and not projecting onto someone how you feel about yourself. Okay? Building a new foundation takes a lot of things. It takes retrusting someone, learning to respect them despite the breakage that they cause in the relationship. That takes a lot out of somebody. And this is why a lot of times you just walk away from connections because you're like, no, I don't got time for that. I don't have the energy to do that. Right? Because when I had the energy to do that, you weren't there. You shut down. You didn't give your energy. You didn't give to this relationship. You weren't able to participate. So now that you want to fix things, now that I have time to sit back and heal and think about me not getting a response or anything, I don't want to deal with that. And on both sides, both is okay because both is a decision that any human can make. Okay, both decisions to walk away, to not say anything, to shut down, that's the decision you had to make. But I always tell people that every choice has a consequence. So if you're not prepared to live with the consequences, think about things before you make a choice. Period. Because you cannot fix a system where blaming, you cannot fix a system while blaming the wrong cause. Because you're blaming everybody but yourself. You're not figuring out what you added to the situation. You're not figuring out how you showed up. You're not figuring out what you've done to make this happen. You're not doing any of those things. Okay. So let's look at it from a different perspective, though. More so like a relativist point of view, because when it comes to a relativist point of view and this topic is more about culture, power, and the social reward of projection. Because culturally, projection is often reinforced rather than challenged. Okay, like I just was saying, many social environments reward certainty, outrage, and moral clarity. Admitting internal confusion or dysregulation is often punished or patronized, right? So it's often pathologized. Excuse me. Now, when it comes to power dynamics definitely intensify this. Humans with more social, institutional, or relational power are more likely to have their projections validated. Like they say, say for instance, if someone who has a lot of friends or a lot of money, like they run like a big company or a big organization, and you pull away from them, they could easily just smear your name. They could easily just smear your name and say, oh, they are a bad person. Oh, they stole from you. Or they did this and that. And the whole time you did nothing. They say, oh, they got a bad attitude. No, the whole time you did nothing but be supportive to them and loving with them, and you see them for who they were. So you decided to pull your energy back because you realized they weren't as supportive and loving as they claimed to be. They just weren't, right? So the more people you have to back up your projections about other people and other situations and other things, the more it's seen as valid. And when you have someone who's stepping in, who's like a clean slate like me, like I don't want to be a part of the group conversation unless it's about productivity. So I'm going to always be a person who steps into bullshit and say like, whoa, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be a part of that. So if you're going to talk about people and we're not going to work, I'm going to go, period, because that's not why I'm here. Like, and like, it's little things, you notice in connections perhaps where somebody, you might be doing something great and somebody knows you're working on something like, oh, your little thing. Oh, now you're minimizing me. One thing I will not take from any friendship or connection is someone minimizing my efforts. Because for me, I'm a person who is more optimistic and I like to make people feel good about themselves. And when I don't receive that, it just does something to me. And it's like, you know what? I might be in the wrong circle. I might be around the wrong energy because you're not able to give. You're only able to project who you're not onto other people, who you are onto other people. Excuse me. So excuse me, those with less power and less influence are likely to be assigned to blame. Like they feel like, oh, they have more popularity, they have more friends and stuff like that. Of course, they're going to smear your name and make you like the bad guy. Everybody's going to believe them because they're too cowardly to stand up to these people because maybe they benefit from them in some way. When you're benefiting from someone in some way, you're not going to stand up to them because you feel like you're going to lose. You feel like that you're going to lose access to that person. You're going to lose resources from that person. So you would never want to stand up to them and say, well, I know that person. They're not like that. That's you. Right. And for me, I use my discernment when I say things, and I'm very intentional, but I will stand up to someone like, listen, I don't do all that slander, right? Because somebody can sue you for that. So I'm going to say this, that you need to look in the mirror before you start pointing fingers. And the issue is the people that don't have that big giant network and that big giant stuff, they are always looked at as the bad person because they're always going to stand up for what's right. Right. And when you stand up against a crowd, like, birds of a feather, they actually flock together. When you stand up against a flock of flying monkeys, right? It's going to be very, very challenging to not be looked at as the bad person or the problem because they need resources from that other person. They need the clout that comes from them. They need possible whatever they're giving them. They need it from that person. So they're going to validate them. And then it may be other people that's in the same position as them. And they feel that kind of way, like they can point out the flaws in everyone but themselves, right? They can talk about everyone but themselves. Right. And mind you, most of these people talk so bad about themselves, you don't want to sit around them. Okay. Keep that in mind as well. That's a possibility as well. So be encouraged that when it comes to projection, this just turns projection into a structural issue and not a personal one, not just a personal one, because the analysis behind a relativist mindset, it also shows that different cultures normalize different projection targets, right? Because some people, they externalize blame onto individuals, onto other groups, onto other systems, as we know, or identities. It is in all cases, the function is still the same. Regulate internal discomfort by locating it elsewhere. So if somebody makes you feel uncomfortable because they're Black or because they're gay, you're going to blame them. Oh, because they're Black, I feel uncomfortable, I might get robbed. No, bitch, you feel uncomfortable because your body, because that's how you choose to feel, right? Because nobody's sexually touching you. Nobody's insinuating that you should be gay as well. No one is insinuating that you have to be involved with the Blackness, what I got going on over here in my Blackness, right? But it's something inside of you that's so bothered that you project your uncomfortableness onto others, okay? And this is what I mean by being dysregulated, okay? So social media environments accelerate projection by removing regulating cues like tone, pacing, and embodied presence. Humans project freely when the nervous system does not receive feedback from another, right? Now, let's be honest and let's be clear. There's a few things about feedbacks from others that I just can't mess with because I don't feel like everyone can give me feedback. I don't feel like everyone is on my level. I don't feel like everyone's had my level of healing. I don't feel like everyone has my same morals, principles, ideologies, and belief systems. So they can say whatever they want to say, but I'm going to just take what I need to take and just throw the rest away because I'm not sitting here letting anyone, I'm not really sitting around ever letting anyone's projections of who I am and what I'm doing dictate my future. dictate my moves or anything like that, And I'm not saying that I'm so confident that I don't need advice. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what someone else eats does not make me shit. Point blank, period. I don't care if it was my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, my cat, my dog. What someone else eat is never going to make me shit. Unless we're all eating the same food and we all gotta go to the bathroom at the same time. That's the only way that's going to happen. But it's still not going to make me poop because they are eating it. They can sit there and eat all day and I still won't have to go to the bathroom, right? So the things that they're eating, the way that they process, the way that their brain and their metabolism and their chemicals in their body and the way their stress hormones release has nothing to do with Empress, right? So we have to be mindful that when you're getting feedback from other people, know their intentions, observe them. And this is when you respect someone's feedback, because I don't respect everyone's feedback. I don't even look at some people as being enough to respect them when they're saying anything about anyone, because they don't respect themselves. How could you expect someone to respect you when you don't respect yourself? That's a real thing. How can you expect me to respect you when you don't respect yourself? You don't respect yourself to do better by yourself. You don't respect yourself to take care of your health. You don't respect yourself to take care of your body. You don't respect yourself to take care of your mind. You don't respect yourself to tell people no. You don't respect yourself to tell somebody else, this is my life. I can decide what I want to do with my life. So how can you get respect from someone else when you don't even respect yourself, but sit around and point the finger at other people about what they should, could, would, and shouldn't do and how they're doing it? That's crazy work. A lot of people need a reality check, because I'm a person, I'd be needing reality checks as well, right? And I'm blessed to have them. I'm blessed to have them. I don't think nobody is above the program when it comes to the universe at all. I don't care how divine we are, how gifted, how enlightened we are. Nobody's above the universal program of learning a lesson, of learning, of evolving, of mastering, right? So when it comes to this lesson today, I truly hope that y'all understand that misattribution and relational projection, misattribution often is like the worst combination ever, because it always is going to cause a relational collapse, especially when you have someone who's not filtering through, who's not making their own decisions, and who's going off of things that other people are saying, projections, and just, or someone who's just not good at communication, someone who's not good at responding in a timely manner, someone who doesn't know how to hold together a sustainable, healthy relationship, or someone who's just a plain out blatant liar, right? And someone who just doesn't care. With that being said, my name is Empress, Coach Nicole of RenaNicole.com, Divine Intervention Show and Podcast. With that being said, thank you for coming out to Divine Intervention Show Season 2, Episode 3, period. Make sure y'all like, follow, and subscribe. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on every streaming platform for my music and my podcast, point blank, period. You can catch me on Instagram, every social. I'm out there. Talk to y'all later. Peace, y'all.
I ain't gonna lie, bro. You should leave her alone until you get a mic, because